name's Kathryn solely, and this is 1-800-CALL-KATHRYN. And as always, get this candle lit. And then we'll hear from our first caller.
Hi, Kathryn. This is Faye. I am really enjoying the show. Thanks for doing this. I'm calling in today because I'm going through what feels like a really scary fallow period. And it's a jobless period. I left a pretty abusive workplace earlier this summer and did so in part to do a professional certification. But also because it was not a healthy environment. And this is the third sort of longer than I'd like stint out of unemployment that I've had in the past 4 years. And every time I get to a point where I start to get really scared, just this like existential terror, that I am completely incapable of taking care of myself, and that I am, never going to be able to, consistently provide for myself, or maybe provide for myself at all. And so I guess my question is, how best to move through these fallow and genuinely, scary kind of places, and sort of keep my head above water and be able to do so while still, maintaining my relationships and living my daily life, and trying to move myself forward genuinely, but maybe with a little bit less of this. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Say, for calling. I said this in a previous episode, but excuse me, I kind of swallowed my tea the wrong way. Maybe another sip will help there. But yeah, this has been, and I haven't, there's been some calls that haven't made it to air based on either it's not quite clear, either in quality or in what's being shared. But yeah, the work stuff is like very, very big theme on people's minds, it seems, and that makes sense, doesn't it? It is crazy, this world that we live in, where our basic needs are not. Anyway, it's not so good, huh? Okay, let's see what we have for you, Say. Nice. Okay, so we have the Two of Pentacles, the King of Cups, and the King of Swords. Nice. I will say, as a tarot reader, I've given thousands of readings at this point, and I never get tired of I do this format of 3 cards. I don't do spreads. I just pull 3 cards and I talk about them kind of as if the 3 cards were one card in a way, like all of these different energies come together as one reading. But it's this is, I think, to me, one of the most enjoyable things about tarot readings. I mean, there's a lot of different things that are enjoyable about it, but I never get bored of it. There's always, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that it's happened, but in memory, I don't remember any reading that's the same in terms of the cards. I mean, even if it was the same cards, how they were laid out, the same 3 cards, each reading would still be different because every person's different, their inquiry is different, and so it's just like this infinite, endless possibilities of combinations of cards and people, and it's you're always learning too as a tarot reader. You're always learning new things about the cards through reading. It really is like a craft, and it's something that's not, I feel like it's not well respected anymore, if it ever really was. And there's not a lot of good representatives of it either, I don't think. It's been interesting, being on YouTube, and I started a TikTok account I've never had TikTok before, but I got one for the show, and I've never really gone on social media or on YouTube or things for tarot readers and things like this, and I don't feel aligned at all really with what I see. It seems so superficial and fear-based and just made up and telling people what they want to hear and just saying all these kind of key words like soulmate and destiny and these things that I feel bad that people put their faith into these kind of, they're not going to get much out of those readings in the long term. They might get a short boost of a sort of hit of oh, it feels better. Oh, I feel better. I don't have to face the thing I'm afraid of, or, oh yeah, that thing that I want will happen. Yeah, good. But then, I don't know that it's actually helping anybody. So it feels like I have to work against this whole huge community of readers that are, I feel totally different in my approach, but there's really great readers out there too, but anyway, so it's just I love tarot. I like to encourage people, if you have any sort of interest in it, you don't have to become a professional reader or anything like that, but it's a nice practice to have, and you can always learn about cards. It's a great way to learn about archetypal energies. It's a great way to hone the intuition, a great way to study symbolism, and I have a whole 35 or so hours of classes on tarot available on my Patreon. It's only $5 for all of those classes. So if you want to learn about tarot, that's all there. I think most people would charge a ton of money for those, but I don't know, it felt right to put those out there. So anyway, long tangent about tarot. I just love tarot, and I hope if you have any interest in it, I encourage people to get a deck and just start looking at the cards and seeing what comes through. But anyway, back to Say here. So it's interesting, we have these 2 king cards, and they are both looking to the right. And so I don't do spreads, but I do pay attention to how the cards are laid out, and I pay attention to how the cards are interacting with each other. And having these 2 characters looking to the right, to me, indicates that there's a looking to the future, a looking forward. And both of them are kings. And kings are this aspect of ourselves that has a certain level of mastery over the suit that they're ruling. So the suits are the cups, swords, wands, and pentacles, and each one of those suits has a different theme. The cups are related to the emotions, the wands are related to our passion, our energy, how we use our energy in life, and so the kings are these parts of ourselves that have a certain level of mastery or stability over these aspects of one's life. And so having these 2 here, it feels like it's just calling, it's calling on you to remember or to tap into, or to cultivate some kind of combination of those three things. Your maturity. Kings are also a maturity. So your maturity over your emotions, your mastery over your emotions, and a mastery over the way that you're using your energy in the world. So the way that could look, in the last episode, in the Halloween episode, I talked a bit about the King of Cups. The King of Cups is, as you guys, if you've been watching the episodes, it comes up in a lot of readings, and I think it's an energy that most of us are needing at this time when the world is so chaotic. The King of Cups is this aspect of, is a certain level of mastery, of maturity, emotional maturity. And so in this time where you're feeling, what did you say exactly? You said that there was something that really caught me. It said, like an existential terror that you are completely incapable of taking care of yourself. It's intense. So when our physical safety, really, our ability to make money, have savings, be able to pay bills, that sort of thing, if it's in question, it actually triggers like a fear of physical safety. And damn, the world is so crazy. It's something, a newer statistic I saw recently is, I think it's like 82% of people in the US are living paycheck to paycheck. So you have 82% of people who are in that fear of their physical safety on some degree. But that's a very intense emotion. And so with the King of Cups, when that comes up, he recognizes, he lets himself feel the emotion. So you let yourself feel that terror. You let yourself actually feel, not indulge in and like wallow in and get lost in and not, repress it, but actually like feel what that feels like. Like, oh my God, this is really scary. What if, not even the what ifs, but don't even do too much intellectualizing about it, but just getting into like what this actually feels like. But he also knows that those feelings are not who he is, and they're waves, they're temporary, they're passing. So I would even, my guess about you is that you probably, even if, things got really bad financially, that you have places, you have friends, you have family, you have somewhere where you could go and be cared for. And so remember that too. Like if you start to get into this like blah, 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 this like panic, this really intense fear, remember intellectually it's not necessarily as dire as you're feeling it is. The reason it feels so dire is because it's hitting on those lower, more base instinctual fears, survival. But if you look at it with your intellect, then you know that you're going to survive, you're going to be okay, and you're going to get another job. Like you will get another job. You will. It may not come as quickly as you hope, but you trust that it's going to come. And you just keep moving along. And then with the King of Wands, that's that kind of like trust and moving along energy. So the King of Wands, again, it's a king, so it's that mastery, that maturity, but it's having to do not with the emotions, but how we use our energy. And so you might look at, how are you using your life force, your energy at this time? What are you putting your attention into? Are you putting your attention into TikTok? By the way, like I said, I got TikTok for the first time. The energy of TikTok is like not like, if you guys are using TikTok all day, I know everybody says this, but really like reconsider it. It feels like there's something dark about it. There's like, even when people are leaving comments on my posts that are seemingly like friendly and supportive and stuff, there feels like there's this undercurrent of like threat. It's like really weird. And I have a pretty big audience on Instagram, and I don't experience that at all on Instagram. It's like very, very, Instagram has its own issues, but there's something like, I feel like people on TikTok are more divided in some way, or looking for a fight or something. I don't know. This is like my observations of basically like 1 week on TikTok. But anyway, so where are you putting your energy? Are you putting it into TikTok? Are you putting it into worrying about things in the world that really have nothing to do with you? Are you putting your energy into feeling like a victim? Like, you know, what I was saying too, yeah, fuck, like having 82% of people living paycheck to paycheck is insane. It can only come from a spiritually, mentally, emotionally sick culture that happens. A culture, a civilization that has also so much wealth and so much ability to make that not a possibility. But at the same time, you know, are you giving your energy to feeling like, poor me, woe is me, the world is so dark, I'm never gonna get out of this? Or, you know, are you putting your energy into like, okay, I'm capable, I'm smart, I have succeeded in the past, I believe in myself, like, okay, I'm gonna put my energy towards this many job applications. If I'm not sure what kind of career path I want to go on at this point, I'm going to put my energy towards brainstorming, thinking about what do I want to do in life. So, you know, tapping into this, you know, you have 2 kings here. That's not that common in a reading. I mean, it certainly happens, but I notice it. And so having those 2 kings there is like, tap into this part of yourself that is wise, is mature, is grounded, and knows better. And then we have the 2 of Pentacles. You know, the 2 of Pentacles, I'm looking at it as, we could look at it in different ways. One is it's this, maybe this balance of these 2 different king energies, but I'm thinking it's more like the 2 of Pentacles. Pentacles have to do with our physical world experience, so they have to do with career, finances, also physical health and this sort of thing. But in this instance, obviously, it's going to be about career and finances, is my guess. And so the 2 is, it's 2, it's like this. And so when I think about the 2s, I think a lot about balance. And so you're just moving into new territory and you're trying to find your sense of balance in the physical world. And that sense of balance, you could wait to find it until you get a job. You could wait to find that internal balance. So there's balance that will come from an external validation, this external validation of, okay, I got the job, I got some padding in my bank account, I guess I'm safe now. Or you can get that feeling of internal balance, or that of balance and of safety. You can find that internally and know that you're safe no matter what is going on around you, no matter what is going on in the physical world experience. You can experience a certain level of stability and balance and safety, even if you're in debt, even if you're unemployed, even if you're homeless, even if you're in prison. There is a certain level of stability and peace that one can find that comes from within. And most people, you know, in our society at this time, all of our sense of value, of happiness, of stability, we're encouraged to look for it externally. So do you have enough degrees? Do you have enough credentials? Do you have enough followers on Instagram? Do you have enough beauty? Are you thin enough? Do you have the right home? Do you have the right spouse? Do you have the right clothes? Do you have the right bank account? And so on. And there's variations of this depending on what community you're in. Like in certain spiritual communities, it's like, have you gone on enough retreats? Have you done enough? Do you have the right yoga pants? Do you have the right guru? Do you know? And we have a tendency to kind of always be looking for this sort of sense of balance and stability everywhere except here. And so during times of crisis, of emergency, these are the best times, believe it or not. It's easier said than done, but to do the hard work on our psyches. But it feels so bad that we're like, I'm just gonna check out, I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna go on TikTok, I'm gonna watch TV, I'm gonna have casual, meaningless sexual encounters, I'm gonna just whatever I can do to like distract myself from the feeling of badness, of helplessness, of hopelessness, whatever is there. I was just thinking about this earlier in my own life of I've had a period over this past year where I was in a lot of physical pain due to scoliosis and just, pain in my back. And during that time, I was having so much intense, like deep emotional things coming up that it's amazing how seemingly external experiences will absolutely trigger deep psychological fears and wounds and things like this. And my pain has gotten a lot better. I've been doing really heavy barbell weightlifting, believe it or not, and it's helped with my pain tremendously if anyone's dealing with back pain, as long as you have the right form. I'm doing the starting strength method there's like 4 main exercises that I'm doing. Correct form, it's been actually like so amazing, big fan of it. But now I don't have as much intense pain, and so it's harder to access those deep wounds, the wounds that are actually, can go back to, like, if you go back far enough, it can go back to the loss of the womb, or a loss of a parent, or the loss of the breast, or, just, it's more than probably I will go into on this show, but it's those times when we're really triggered, when we're really challenged, that deep work you can do. It's the hardest time to do it. It's the time where you don't want to do it, but it's the time when it's most easily accessible. When you're feeling good, when you're, everything feels good in life, more or less, you don't have the same incentive to go towards these negative feelings, because they have no effect on you. It's not to go on too much of a tangent here, but it's also the benefit of not having a good childhood or having traumatic things happen in one's life, is that you have the incentive to go towards those feelings. Everybody has these underlying feelings of badness, of inadequacy, of unlovability, hidden underneath all of the different, strategies and coping mechanisms and identities and whatnot. But if you have trauma in your history, then you have an incentive to go towards those things that you wouldn't have if you didn't have to feel those intense emotions. Little silver lining there that probably most people would probably rather not have had a traumatic childhood, but so let's pull an oracle card here for Say. This card always makes me laugh. It always feels like a joke. Nothing. Okay, so when I see this card come up in relationship to the rest of the reading, it's just like, stop thinking about it so much, stop worrying so much. Again, you're gonna be okay. I try not to say things like that in readings, but I'm gonna say it anyway. You'll be fine. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna find work. You also probably, you said you had an abusive work environment. You're also probably just dealing with like a certain level of PTSD from that, depending on how intense the abuse was there. And so you might also just be having anxiety about like getting a job again or working again, because your experience was so bad. On some level, you might just be like, oh, I don't want to, you're associating that sort of abusive environment with work. But, you know, I assume that you've learned from that experience, and if you do end up working at a place again that is abusive in some way, that you will recognize it quickly and get out of there. So, all right, say, so yeah, just, you know, I said a lot in this reading, but having that nothing card there to, you know, to summarize for you here, I'll just say, don't worry about it too much. You'll be okay, it'll be fine. Just, you know, do your best to tap into the king kind of archetype, those mature kind of aspects of yourself, and yeah, don't worry too much. Okay, so let's hear from our next caller here.
Kathryn, I just left a message, but it seems like it got cut off somewhere in the middle, and I don't know when. So I'm going to try it again and be a bit more concise. So, hi. I recently moved to a new country to be with my partner, who I met last summer and fell absolutely in love with. And he's a professional musician, and I'm a sort of amateur musician. I'm mostly a singer. I play some guitar. And when I was young, I dreamed of being a singer professionally, being a musician for a living. And that hasn't panned out in my life, though. My work involves music to a great degree. It's mostly talking about music or researching music and not performing it. And since I arrived here in my partner's country and in the center of his life as a professional musician, I've found that I'm basically like almost unable to engage in music in the way that I might otherwise. I mean, I've always been quite shy with music, but I'm finding that like I try to sing and my throat just closes, or I try to pick up the guitar and I just like can't. And there's just a lot of comparativeness going on, a lot of grief for what like I feel I missed out on in my life, because my partner and I have kind of similar personalities, and it's hard not to sort of see the difference in how things panned out for us, I think, in terms of our self-expression in that way. And I'm not typically a very comparative kind of person. There's just a lot of grief that's coming up when I see someone being so proficient and so like joyful and filled in this field that I haven't really been able to do that for myself with. So, yeah, I have a lot of strong feelings about it, and it's quite painful. And I'd like to know if you can give me any sort of advice for how to bring back the joy and playfulness that music, you know, quote unquote, should bring. Because yeah, right now it's not particularly accessible to me. Just I go into a bit of grief and freeze mode, and I'd love any help you can give. Thank you.
Comparison is the thief of joy. I don't know who said that or if I'm quoting that correctly, but it really is. Yeah. Okay, well, let's see. I don't know if you left your name. I don't think so. Let's see what we have for you. So finding the joy in music again, in your creative expression. I think a lot of us go through things like this. If you're not someone who's a professional creative, you know, I think basically all of us enjoy making things as kids, you know, making art or dancing or singing or whatever. And then through comparison a lot of the times, or through a devaluing of the importance of just creativity and just enjoying doing something just for the sake of doing it, we lose that connection. I think it's so much worse now too with social media, because it's like, I don't know, as like artists or musicians, artists of all different mediums. You're expected to always be like sharing your progress, and I don't know. Let's see what we have for you here. Okay, so we have the World, the Five of Swords, and the Three of Wands. Okay, so I'm getting like all of these different kind of images coming to my mind. But basically, what I see here with these three cards is the World card is like what could be or what you're desiring. The Five of Swords is what's holding you back, what's like, is probably a lot of the current feelings. And then the Three of Wands feels like it's looking to the future of what could, the World card, I know I said it's what could be, but it's sort of like, it's the more like relaxed, kind of expansive, chill, you know, with, I wouldn't really call myself a musician, but I know enough to say that if you're playing music from like a really like stressed, like feeling bad about yourself, worried about what people think about you, you're not gonna really be that good. You know, you might be able to be technically good in some way, but you're not gonna inspire anything in anybody. So you need to have that sort of like relaxation and trust, and where you're in the flow, you're like channeling in a certain way. It's like, I feel like it's part of, you know, do you guys notice that? I mean, I know there's probably a lot of reasons for this, but there's like no good movies being made in the last few years, but it's gotten like worse and worse and worse over, you know, 10-20 year period. But I feel like it's gotten worse in large part because so many of the actors are so like aware of themselves in like the wrong way, like aware of being on camera, aware of like how people are thinking about them in a way that I think in the past, like even, you know, mainstream actors, I think were really like giving themselves to the character, giving themselves to the craft. And now I think with like the advent of social media and certain aspects of the internet, it's like people are so aware that they're being watched all the time. And I think it squelches a certain ability to like surrender and experiment and take risks and be vulnerable and potentially look dumb through doing so. You know, it's like people are afraid to do that. So with that World card, it's like the opposite of that. It's like, okay, I'm surrendered to my craft. And then the difference between that in my mind and the Three of Wands is more like envisioning. The Three of Wands is more like looking to the future and like, what do you want for yourself? You know, you're saying, this was also like, okay, how old are you? You don't sound that old. And you're saying like, I can't remember exactly what you said, but that things in your life haven't panned out, or, you know, and I'm like, what do you think? You can't, you can't more seriously devote yourself to the craft of music now? Of course you can. You can do that at any age. I mean, obviously it takes time to like hone a craft, and that's important for sure, but don't give up on yourself, you know? So, okay, I want to talk too about the Five of Swords. So when I was feeling into that card for you in this reading, I was just seeing all these like you, and this is symbolic, obviously. Tarot is a symbolic craft and intuition is a symbolic thing. but I was just seeing an image of you with like swords just like stabbing yourself. Like you're like doing this to yourself. Like, I'm not good. Like, look at what my partner's so good and I'm not good. And that other person I saw, they're good. And why didn't I study more? And why didn't I practice more? And my voice isn't, as good as it used to be. And blah, blah, blah. Like, oh my God, don't do that to yourself. And these voices, sometimes we can have these voices that are there and we don't even like know that they're there. It's fascinating. I mean, I say sometimes because I know that people will resist this and not want to hear it a lot of the time, but I mean, I believe that like everybody at this time on the planet has these internal monologues, these internal voices that are not even, are barely conscious, if conscious at all. They're just like this background kind of noise that it's like the air that we breathe, we don't even notice that it's there. So most people have some kind of internal dialogue like that going on. So if that's you, caller, if you're like really being harsh on yourself, that's gonna kill your creativity. That's gonna kill your craft. Of course you can't. Of course you don't feel good performing. Of course you don't feel good playing because you're tense, you're stressed, you're comparing yourself. Like, my question too is, do you have to like perform for others? Can you just for a time, could you just play by yourself? I don't know if it's something where you need like a band or you need other people, but my guess is that there's, you might want to play with other people, but you could also play by yourself. You could sing by yourself. I think you said that you were a singer. Yeah, mostly singer. So just sing for your own enjoyment for a while, and don't really worry about what is going to come of it. When you're thinking about the future, maybe you don't have to think about like being a successful musician or being seen as talented. As long as you enjoy it, just do it. Just do it for yourself. Do it for your own enjoyment. And I'm sure, other people will enjoy hearing you as well. And but don't make that the motivation. Other people's approval, or being seen as talented or something like that. So let's pull an oracle card here for some guidance with these themes going forward. Interesting. Okay, so we have the Seeker card. When I see this card, it brings me back to the World card here, and this feeling that the World card brings up in this reading of just opening to inspiration. And the Seeker card, you can see here, got the hands on the ear, and they're listening. And in your case, you're listening for the inspiration. Do you hear it? I mean, I give the example of movies, but it's really like all arts have really suffered, I think, for the reasons that I said about actors, but it's the same with like all the arts where you're comparing yourself to others, we're also all like drawing on this like huge pool of what's come before. I feel like I rarely see like artists in various mediums that are actually pulling from their own internal inspiration, from their own, in ancient Greece, there were the daemons. The daemons were these seen as like little, sorry, my phone storage got full. But anyways, I was saying the artists of the time would say they would look to the daemons for inspiration. They would look for inspiration from like a divine outside of their ego source. And if their art was good, they gave credit to the daemons. If it was bad, it's the daemons' fault. And I think we're really like culturally lacking this artistry where people are getting inspiration from higher places, from places outside of the ego, from places outside of am I going to be viewed as good or bad or successful or unsuccessful or talented or untalented or witty or conceptual or whatever, instead of just like this is like the divine inspiration that's coming out of me, and I am in service to this work, as opposed to I'm being like a crafts person, which is an art, but like a crafts person I feel like is different from an artist, and I feel like we have very few artists now. We have mostly crafts people. So anyway, I know that sounds so like like a big lofty kind of ideal, and maybe you feel like you can't reach that. But I'm not saying you have to paint the Sistine Chapel. I'm not saying you have to write a symphony or anything like that, but look for your inspiration from somewhere higher or deeper, depending on your language. And just that's how you'll find the joy too. Do it for yourself, do it for fun, and do it because you feel inspired, because you want to. Don't let all that I just said, by the way, stop you from, if you're like, oh, I can't hear the daemons, I can't hear my divine inspiration, so I can't create. Don't do that either. Can you strike a balance between, just doing it for fun, doing it for your own enjoyment because you like to do it, and, seeing if you can connect, down the line to a greater inspiration than comparison. Okay, that's what I have for you, caller. All right, well, let's hear from our last caller here. Yes. Oh, there we go.
Challenges around my birthday that I've had for the last several years, if not my whole life. I'm about to turn 35 this coming Wednesday on the 11th. I have been trying to intentionally make my birthday a pleasant time, a pleasant day that I want to be present for and celebrate myself and do things to enjoy. But I also use many reasons why that felt very challenging, starting with just being very shy when I was younger and never really learning how to genuinely celebrate myself and be worthy of that. And then not really knowing what it is that I truly genuinely want, aside from what other people wanted for me. And then when I was almost about to turn 27, just 10 days before my dad passed suddenly, and I have had a difficult time unwrapping and untangling grief and confusion from something that should be celebratory. And since then, I've been trying to change my sentiments around this day, and it seems like one thing after the next. We got COVID one year, and the smoke was so dense. One year, my birthday, I think to go outside. So I'm just hoping for some insights around how to, lean into what I want and what feels pleasant and enjoyable, and how to not feel burdened by fears and stress and what I'm projecting other people might want, or what I think they want. So, I would love some insight around. Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, having some birthday stress. By the way, this is coming out long after your birthday, so I'm sorry I didn't get to this before your birthday, but yeah, we're like a month and a half past your birthday here. But I know I am a fellow Virgo myself, so I will say Virgos can be a little bit hard on themselves, a little bit intense sometimes. So I can imagine that contributing to some degree to this. But let's see what we have for you. And hopefully you can take this with you through your year, through your 35th year, and into your next birthday as well. Okay, so we have the Moon, the Five of Wands, and the Four of Wands. Okay. Oh. Well, yeah, I feel the sadness there. Oh, there's some sadness there that you're associating with your birthday, and I'm sure a birthday is like a trigger time. But my guess is that this sadness goes beyond the birthday, that there's something maybe from childhood, feeling not cared about in some way, not loved, not worthy of love or attention. And maybe, I can imagine that perhaps at your birthday there may be, growing up and even now into adulthood, a feeling of like hoping to get that feeling that people care about you and love you fulfilled on your birthday. And maybe this is like maybe like a safe time in your mind in terms of like, I can't ask for, or I'm not going to get the love and appreciation that I long for in day-to-day life. And this may be conscious, this may be unconscious, this feeling. But on my birthday, that's the day I can get it, because that's the day that I'm celebrated. And then when that's a letdown, when you don't get that love and appreciation that you're longing for, even on your birthday, Yeah, I feel like I can feel it's like palpable, the sadness that I feel there. So with this reading, what I see here is we have the Moon card. And so there's this invitation to explore your psyche, explore, if what I just said resonates, to explore that part of yourself, that part that feels that you were not adequately cared for or loved in some way. Even, it's so hard nowadays to kind of talk about this stuff, because I do not want to contribute to this like victimization culture of like everyone is like exaggerating like the trauma that they had, not so that they can work on themselves or heal, but so that they can, I don't know, so that they don't have to like try as hard in life or something. I don't know quite what it is, and I don't want to contribute to that. But at the same time, I do recognize that I also despise the people that are like, will dismiss trauma because it wasn't, you're not a soldier, so you don't have PSTD. Wait, what is that word? Post-traumatic stress, PTSD. That's what it is, right? It sounds weird. It sounds wrong. You can absolutely have PTSD, and in ways that, you know, have not really been recognized until recently. And at the same time, you know, you can do something about it. You don't have to like live in your victimhood. And I'm not saying you, caller, this is just my own, it's hard for me as someone like talking in this way and giving advice, because I do not want to contribute to this like, oh, like my dad was mean to me one time and so I just, you know, and this like, okay, well, do something about it. Like, go to therapy, work on yourself, acknowledge that it's your responsibility now to work with this. But at the same time, you know, I don't want to make fun of that person, because I'm like, yeah, sometimes your dad is mean to you one time and that's like the worst thing that's ever happened to you. It will absolutely, it can absolutely be traumatic. Okay, so there's some sort of like place in between the two kind of main voices that I feel like we hear in popular psychology conversation nowadays. But anyway, with the moon card here, there's this invitation to go towards, you know, if this resonates with you, this feeling of not being cared for in a way that was adequate. You know, sometimes our parents, they can, even if they're more or less good parents, they do their best, they provide, they, you know, are affectionate in certain ways, they, you know, are good in certain ways. They're humans and they're fallible, and they're gonna say things, or they're gonna have their own issues that they've never dealt with that are gonna eke out and affect you in some way. And there can be like little subtle things where it's like, okay, like I know that my mom loved me, I know that that's true, but she could only love me to a certain degree because she lacked a certain depth in herself. And so I was wanting a certain type of affirmation that she just couldn't give me. Anyway, there's so many different ways that could look. So my suggestion here with the card, with that moon card, you know, when that comes up in readings, I often like to recommend psychotherapy. I like to recommend looking, and not talk therapy. Talk therapy has its place. It's very effective for certain things, but it will only deal with your mind. It'll only take you so far. When you're dealing with deeper issues like trauma or certain, you know, anything deeper than basically the surface, you're gonna need different types of therapy. I like to recommend body-centered psychotherapy. I've benefited a lot in my life from Hakomi, Hakomi, is one type that I like to recommend. But with the moon card, there's also, it's not just therapy, but it's like there's something that's unconscious or subconscious there that is affecting your perspective on reality, and you may not even be conscious of it, you know? That's how that stuff works. It's like, there's the famous Jung quote that says, how does it go? The unconscious will, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. And I would even say that nowadays people might not necessarily call it fate, but they'll just be like, that's reality. You know, as we're moving through the world, people don't really realize that when they're looking at their political leaders, when they're looking at their boss at work, when they're looking at their children, when they're looking at their spouse, they're looking at it through this lens of all of their life experiences that they've had so far. So they're seeing their parents, they're seeing these early life experiences that have colored their perspective of reality, and they don't even recognize it. it's because it's unconscious. It's because it's subconscious. You just think that's how life is. It's like how so many people can be like, oh, it's human nature to be. There's someone in my life who will say things like, he loves the saying of, I may not be much, but I'm all I think about. And he's like, that's so true. Like everyone is so, they just think about themselves all the time. And I'm like, no, you think about yourself all the time. And a lot of people, yes, that's true, but not everyone is like, that's all that they think about. That's not like, you know, there's a lot of people that are very concerned with others. You know, it's, yeah, anyway. Five of Wands, you know, I think I've touched on this already without directly talking about it, but it can be this feeling of conflict within yourself, kind of, you know, I would imagine it's like this desiring of love. And I even, you know, having your dad pass away, I know that a lot of the things that you mentioned are not necessarily the things that I'm talking about. So you might be like listening and being like, oh no, but the things that happen on my birthday are like out of my control. It doesn't really matter, because you can be sick on your birthday. You can have, I mean, your dad dying, obviously that's not gonna be something you can probably compartmentalize and then go out and celebrate. But, well, it wasn't on your birthday, but 10 days, even 10 days, I mean, you're still actively in the grieving process then. But you can still, you know, things like getting sick, or you can't go outside because of smoke or things like that. You can still, you know, have a nice birthday if you're not putting this sort of like pressure on yourself and on those around you to, you know, feel like, okay, today's the day I'm gonna be loved. Today's the day I'm gonna feel good enough. Yeah, your dad dying. I would be curious to, you know, to look at what was your relationship with your dad like? Did you feel loved by your dad? Did you have a difficult relationship with your dad? Or was he like the safe, secure person in your childhood and now you don't have him? Like, it could be beneficial to look at, you know, the relationship with your dad as well. I'm sure that you do that, or you have done that. And then the Four of Wands is kind of an interesting one, because I'm remembering that in the Rider-Waite-Coleman-Smith deck, which is the deck that most people are familiar with. I don't use it for reasons I've talked about on previous episodes, but in that depiction of the Four of Wands, there's a celebration. There's a party, kind of. I think that people read it as a wedding sometimes, but so it's just kind of funny seeing that come up in the reading. But I would say, you know, kind of like what I was saying to the first caller, of you can look outside of yourself to have your birthday go in a way where you can feel at peace, you can feel loved, you can feel happy, you can feel satisfied, because external circumstances are meeting you. And there's absolutely healing in that. There is, I mean, you could even, if you had a therapist or you had like a trusted loved one, you could even do like an experiment where maybe you close your eyes, and you could do it by yourself too to some extent, but I think it's helpful to have someone hold the space. And you imagine like walking into a room, and there's like a big party and everyone you know is there, and they're like, happy birthday! You walk into the room and they yell, and they're all like so happy to see you, and everyone got you a gift, and it's like exactly what you wanted. It's like, oh, they know me so well. And you know, you can visualize and kind of imagine this ideal, like absolutely perfect birthday scenario. Like, what would that look like for you, where you feel like it's just the best birthday you've ever had? And maybe your best birthday won't look like that, I don't know, in your mind. And just see what that brings up. You know, my guess is that would probably bring up some tears, you know, because maybe you're feeling like the feeling of not having that, or, you know, maybe there can be a certain type of feeling of healing that can come from even imagining something like that happening. But in the same, as I was saying, you can look for that feeling of like satisfaction and fulfillment from external circumstances meeting you in a way that makes you feel like that was a good birthday. But you can also find that feeling within yourself, which, I didn't say this to the first caller, but really it's easier said than done. It really is. It's, requires a lot of inner reflection and inner work and acknowledgement of certain wounds, belief systems, whatnot. Yeah. Okay, let's pull an oracle card here for some guidance with these themes going forward. Interesting. Conflict. It's interesting to me because the Five of Wands is a card, like one of the key words that I think of with the Five of Wands is often conflict. So I wonder, what is the conflict that you're feeling within yourself around this? Is there a feeling of, do you feel guilty? Do you feel bad that you want this? Do you feel like, I should just be happy with what I have? Are there shoulds, or is there a feeling of like guilt or shame, or do you feel like angry at your parents or spouse or friends that they're not providing what you need? Sit with that for a moment. I know this isn't like there's a feeling too that there's like some fear, and I get curious what childhood was like. Was there fighting in the house? Was there neglect, like a complete lack of fighting, where like no one talked about anything? Was there passive aggressiveness? Were you the scapegoat in certain instances? Were you made to feel ashamed, like you did something wrong at some point, or unlovable? I mean, I'm asking these questions, but it's like everybody kind of goes through some variations of that. Yeah, it's, again, when I feel into this reading, I definitely feel sadness. I definitely feel like there's some sadness there that I think if you address, if you work with, and it's not going to be something that you can do in like a day. It's probably something that will take some time, but my sense is that if you address and work with this feeling of sadness, I don't know exactly what it is, it could be feeling not cared for. That's kind of the main thing that comes up for me. And again, children, humans are like amazing in their ability to survive. And so sometimes it can be hard for us to acknowledge that we didn't feel loved or we didn't feel cared for, because on the surface it's like, again, like, oh no, of course my parents love me, of course they do. And the extreme version of this is like, of course my parents love me, like they just hit me because I did something bad, or they were just had a hard day at work, or we can rationalize so much. Really, when you're a child, it's like in order to survive, because you can't survive on your own when you're a kid, right? And then that's like a more kind of extreme, obvious version, but then there's like more subtle versions of that are experienced in similar ways by our psyches. So, okay, caller, that's what I have for you. I will say too, I know I'm like, oh, you're so sad, and you know, like, oh, I feel so much sadness in there, and it doesn't mean that you are stuck with that, or that that's who, you know, you're gonna have shitty birthdays for the rest of your life, or you're gonna, you know, just be sad girl forever, or whatever. It doesn't mean that at all. You can absolutely address these things and work through them and live much better, live a much happier, much more fulfilled, much more satisfying life than if you just ignored it, which is what most people do. Most people have all these things, and in order to survive again, they just repress it and pretend it never happened. But anyway, I hope you have a good birthday next year. I hope you had a good one this year as well. And if it wasn't a good birthday, you know, I don't know. I hope that it was. I'm gonna pull a card of the day to close out our episode here. Before I do that, I just want to mention that I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Kathryn solely, where I have tons and tons of video classes. There's, I think, 85 hours at this point of video classes. I put out a video every month on topics like tarot, herbalism, plant-spirit communication, symbology, the Book of the Dead, healthy boundaries, all sorts of things. And that's all of those videos are available for just $5 a month. I also have a $24 a month tier on Patreon where you can get an herbal care package delivered to your door every month. Plus, you also get all the videos. I have a shop, kathrynsolely.com/shop, where I sell flower essences, necklaces, and elixirs, and I have a couple salves that are in the shop at this time. I offer tarot readings, so if you want a tarot reading and you don't want it on the show, I do offer those through my website as well. And my big offering is called the Poisonous Plant Medicine course, and that I have a new round of classes starting January 5th. And yeah. So, okay, let's see what our card of the day is. Ooh, I like that one. All right. We have the 10 of Pentacles. And so, again, Pentacles have to do with our physical world experience. They have to do with finances, career, physical health, the way that we are in the world, the way that we show up in the world. And so the 10 is like, it's the last number. We have 1 through 10 in the suits, and 10 is this feeling of fulfillment, completion, satisfaction. And so with the 10 of Pentacles, it feels like this invitation to enjoy life, enjoy what's here. I think our last month, it was a different card, but I feel like or our last episode, it was a different card, but had maybe a similar message. Maybe I'm misremembering, but just enjoy what's here. Enjoy your physical world experience. You have senses. You can see things. I mean, assuming most people have 5 senses, some people don't have all 5, but you know, if you don't have all 5, you still have, you know, hopefully at least 1. But you have sight. You can see beautiful colors all around you all the time. Beautiful things, flowers, the trees are changing colors outside. Little, you know, whatever, all these beautiful things in the world that you get to look at. You can hear, you can listen to beautiful music, like hearing our second caller and with their voice, and all of the beautiful kind of sounds that we get to hear, the birds chirping outside, the laughter of a loved one. We have the sense of taste. We get to eat delicious food. We get to taste sugar. Sugar is so good. Salt, it's so good. So many, infinite amounts of flavors and flavor combinations, and butter, and so many tasty things. We get to smell. You get to smell a rose. You get to smell all sorts of different florals, perfumes, the smell of a baby's head, compost. You can even smell divine in the right moment. The smell of the leaves composting on the ground as you walk through the woods in the fall. And we have the sense of touch. We get to lay a nice fuzzy sweater here. You get to go take a hot shower and feel that nice warm water. You get to feel, swimming in a cold lake, and all of these different physical sensations that we get to have. We get to experience so much in the world, even on like the most basic level. And so no matter where you're at in life, no matter where life has taken you, whether you feel like you're in a low point or a high point, you have the ability to enjoy your senses, enjoy your physical world experience. And I will say at the same time, you are not your senses. Your senses are something that's you're experiencing. It's something that's transitory, it's passing, and it's ultimately not really who you are. But when we're with our human bodies, we get to have these human bodies, we may as well, enjoy what we're doing every single day. How many meals do you eat a day? You might as well enjoy it and taste it while you're eating. Why not, right? It doesn't mean you have to, become gluttonous and I'm thinking of medieval English kings or something. You don't have to go that route in order to enjoy. You can just, even like eating like a date or something can be like, oh wow, what a great tasting thing I get to enjoy. Or your cup of coffee. Wow, I get to taste this interesting kind of bitter, rich, full, strange, it's like there's no other flavors we really have like coffee, huh? Okay. All right, guys, that's what I have for you all today. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. Please keep calling in 1-641-632-2727. Keep calling in so I can keep shooting episodes. And I will say too, if you enjoy the show and you just want to support it, on my Patreon I have a $2 tier also, and on that tier I do monthly collective tarot forecasts. So I do a monthly tarot forecast each month, and that's available for $2. But even just, it helps, support the show and support the work that I'm doing. Obviously, $5 helps a little more, and so on. But if you enjoy the show, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. Please consider following me on various social medias, Instagram and TikTok. I think I have a Facebook page for the show, but I'm not sure if anything's posted there. But please consider subscribing on YouTube, liking the shows, and commenting and all that sort of stuff. So thanks everyone for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.